And welcome to the 50th episode of the TechnoBuffalo Show. I'm one of your two hosts for today, Sean, editor-in-chief of the site, and I'm joined by Deputy Managing Editor Todd Hazelton.
Hey, everybody.
Excuse my squeaky mic arm as I move it there.
50th.
50th.
Sneaking up on it.
Yeah. No, sneak up on what? This is the 50th episode.
Yeah, I know. It snuck up on me, I should say.
Yeah, and this has also been our longest uninterrupted run. Even though you went to California, Joey sat in.
We had Joey.
We're getting better.
Nice.
Now, if Microsoft would just stop scheduling things on Wednesday, although this week it wasn't a scheduling conflict, It was just a catch-up day for a situation. But yes, we have a lot going on right now. So, of course, we had Google I/O last week. Or excuse me, Google I/O.
We'll get into the second day though, which I thought was very fun.
That was so bizarre to me. The second day was far more interesting than the first day.
Yeah, I feel like, well, we can talk about it in a little bit, but I feel like they should have shared some of that stuff maybe on the first day.
I agree that the first day's keynote, it was just too long. When you start off with an 8-minute animated video,
yeah,
that was just that thing was ridiculous.
Yeah,
what killed me was, now I have to bring up the Google Maps situation.
Okay,
the offline Google Maps situation. So Google comes up and they're talking about Google Maps, and they talk about, you can now save your Google Maps offline. They said now,
right?
You and I have been doing this for literally, and I'm using that word correctly, literally years.
Yeah, exactly. Years I've been saving my maps offline. They actually announced it, I think it was a Google I/O, I don't know, 2-3 years ago.
Well, 2 years ago when I went to Edinburgh, Scotland, I didn't know what my internet connection was going to be like on my phone. I had saved Edinburgh offline. Now, yes, there was a new feature that you can do turn-by-turn directions. That's
and
great.
Search and stuff like that, right? Yeah.
But over here on my right screen, where I always have Twitter going, Google's talking about, saving maps offline. And I cannot believe the people, and I won't name them, but people in our industry who are going, wow, this is amazing. I can't wait to try this out. Oh, I've always wanted them to do something like this.
Yeah, and we've been, it's been there for a long time. Even in my post that sort of talked about the whole conference, I talked, this has been available for a while, and I linked to a tutorial that Google has already, how to save your maps offline. But yeah, it's cool. They're just making it a lot more detailed, so it's more valuable. Sort of like what Nokia here has now with their offline, turn-by-turn navigation and stuff like that. But
yeah, that blew my mind. But that was a theme throughout the day, that they kept talking about features we already knew about.
Android Wear, for example, they were talking about the new features, but a lot of them were what were already introduced in 5.1.1, which we already had hands-on with, and stuff on the ZenWatch. And I'm not saying like we're ahead of everybody or anything like that. I'm just saying that a lot of these things were already released. And it was sort of, a lot of it kind of came off as a recap, like here's what we have now. So hold on, I have a puppy whining behind me.
Well, she's staring at herself in the mirror.
I'm gonna grab her real quick.
No problem, Todd. For those that don't know, Todd has a youngish puppy named Mabel, and she is
she can say hi to everybody.
She's discovered herself in the mirror. One of my dogs does that, except I know he wants to know who that other dog is.
Right, I think that's what's going on with her.
Yeah, thinks it's another dog, and she doesn't understand why it won't play with her.
Right.
But so yeah, Google I/O was just, now the second day was far more interesting.
Right. Yeah, we had the ATAP group, so they talked about all the inventions they're working on, and that came down to radar that fits in like a wearable, so like a smartwatch where you could just make gestures over the screen and it knows, I'll bring my hand up, like what your hand is doing. So you could like turn your watch dial, say, but an invisible one, and it can recognize that. They also had wearable technology built into textiles, so fabric, and a guy on stage he was wearing a jacket where, for example, you could swipe down the arm to answer a phone call on your phone, which is pretty crazy.
Okay, now
and they partner with Levi's, so like it's not just sort of a pipe dream or something.
Here's my problem with this whole, swipe on your clothing. Mm-hmm. You're going to end up with a dirt streak.
Right. Yeah, right. Like your
will
sleeves
not
just
go
worn
away.
through.
Yeah. You're going to be like, well, this was great for the first month, but then I answered too many calls.
Right. Yeah. And then they had, what else? They showed Project Aura finally working. So the modular smartphones. And I'm not sure, we had a recap on this site, so I don't want to go too far into detail of what we already talked about, but they showed the device working. They put the speakers on, I think they put the processor on, and then powered it on. And then they added the camera, sort of like a hot swap module, just right in there, and then took a selfie. So it was one of the first times we actually saw it working, which is really cool.
Well, we have a question from Sachin Bahal about what was your favorite announcement that was made at Google I/O 2015. I would say it was, I want to see more about this integration of wearable clothing, and because they didn't touch on it, but like, how's it going to handle being washed?
Right.
Are you going to have to remove everything every time you go to wash it?
I don't think you can, because it's like sewn into the fabric. It's just
exactly.
Like
So
but there was, like, you're right, there was like a power module that they put in the pocket. So I wonder if that must have to come out.
Even if the components are water resistant, which I would assume they are, the violence inside of a washer being banged and thrown around and hitting the side and everything else, you would think would break down the components.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like, look at the lint, when you take stuff out of the water.
Yeah. Now, I mean, admittedly, the jacket that he was wearing, the sports jacket, that's probably a dry clean situation. But, Levi's, you throw them in the wash.
Yeah, right.
So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to learn more about that project. But I would say that was by far the most interesting thing to me out of the entire I/O.
Yeah, I think that and Project Aura, because, it's like, they said from the very beginning, like, this, we don't, it's what do they call them? Moonshot projects. Like, we don't know if we're going to ever be able to do this, but we're going to try. When they took it over from the other company that they started working with, I forget the name of it, Blocks or whatever. And now they're showing that, wow, this is actually real. They showed the designs on the back of the device so you could customize it, with your own personal look. But so now I'm just waiting for it to really go on sale in Puerto Rico, which they've said, should be coming in the future.
Really interesting question here from Christopher Miles. Do you guys think Apple has an ATAP-like group working on long-term technologies, or are they completely consumer-focused, working only on what they believe will deliver maximum profit? I fully believe that they have something similar to ATAP.
Yeah, I think so too. It seems like it, or at least, certainly different divisions working on these moonshot sort of projects, like with the Apple Car or something like that. Because if they didn't, it would be like a missed opportunity, right? Where Google and all these other companies are going to, and Microsoft, for example, with HoloLens, would sort of undercut them. So I think they do have it, but I don't know if it's working the same way that Google's does, where it's, as far as I understand, ATAP, it's like this one big group working on lots of different things. Where Apple, I think it's probably smaller, secretive groups working on specific projects.
Well, for instance, the Apple television set, it does not look like it's ever coming to market, but there is overwhelming evidence that at least prototypes exist.
Right.
And that, it's been documented numerous times that there is some form of it in Johnny Ive's office.
Right, yeah.
So maybe they weren't ever planning on coming to market with it, for all we know. Maybe it was an in-house project.
Right.
When you get people this intelligent, be it at Google or Apple or any other company, they can't just sit around and work on just one idea at a time. That's just not how that sort of brain functions. And so I fully believe that, there's a lot of things at Apple that we will never see, that we'll never know a thing about. I'm fine with that.
In all of these companies, I think.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we've seen a little bit about what I think Google's been doing with contact lenses and diabetes, I think. And it's sort of one of those projects that's been mentioned. They've talked about it, but not in detail at, I/O with ATAP or anything like that, where, who knows how long, it's been in progress or if it's ever going to hit the market, but they're sort of working on these other projects too.
Well, speaking of Apple, we have WWDC next week, which is the Worldwide Developers Conference. It's starting to. I mean, we'd heard rumors that the new Apple TV, the set-top box, not the television,
right? Not the television.
Yeah, just for clarification, anytime Todd and I say Apple TV from here on out, unless we say otherwise, we are talking about the set-top box.
Yeah.
We had heard the Apple TV was going to be shown. Now we're hearing, according to, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal, that it's not going to be shown.
Oh, New York Times recently.
I knew it was one of the two. One of those old fuddy-duddy newspapers. But what is going on with this thing? It has been so long since it has been updated.
Yep. 2013, I think I saw when I was looking it up the other day.
I know. Okay, in general terms, that doesn't seem like a long time. In the world of technology, that's a decade.
Yeah. And I mean, we saw too that HomeKit, the devices are coming out now. I'm sure they're going to talk about that in some fashion on Monday, and that Apple TV is going to serve as the hub of that. And I think it requires the most recent one, which is 2013. But everybody was sort of thinking, oh, well, it's going to have to be this new version that's coming out or something like that. And I guess it's going to be that one for now. But it kind of, we're waiting for this streaming TV service and all these other things that seem like it requires new hardware. But again, I don't know. Maybe they can still do a software update to this other one to sort of get things going. I mean, as long as it's connected to your home internet, right? It should still be able to control your smart devices.
It should.
Right.
It should.
But maybe it doesn't have the power to run. Siri is one of the rumored features. So, and its own app store. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, well, actually, I just looked it up. Let's see. The last update to the Apple TV was March 2012.
Was it really 2012? I thought. Okay, wow. So there you go.
1,097. Yes, I'm using the Mac Buyer's Guide. 1,097 days since the last update.
Wow. There you go.
So
I'm going to guess it probably doesn't have enough power to do everything they want with an app store and everything. So I think that other model still has to come at some time. But, maybe the reason is that they can't announce it because everybody's saying they're still trying to finalize all these deals with, the cable providers and stuff.
But couldn't that be pushed out as an OTA update?
That's what you'd think. Or just like, here's the Apple TV coming soon and it'll have Apple TV streaming. But, maybe they're so worried about getting these contracts, they might, fall through that they can't. But it seems weird to me that they'd have this box ready to go and they can't introduce it in some fashion. But it sounds like New York Times sources, are correct. They're not often wrong.
What gets me is how much I care about when the Apple TV is updating, since it's not even my favorite streaming device.
Yeah, we were just talking about that too.
For those wondering, the Roku is my favorite streaming device. But all right, so that narrows down what we're going to see next week. We know we're not going to see a new iPad. They very, very rarely do new hardware at WWDC. If they do, it's usually like a MacBook Pro or something. Right.
I was thinking maybe MacBook Air with Retina and Force Touch, because the MacBook, just the regular MacBook now with Retina display, has the Core M processor. So there's still room for that Air upgrade with some Core i5, Core i7 chips in it. Just to bring it up to par with what Apple did with the MacBook Pro with Retina and Force Touch too. So Force Touch also is what I meant.
Yeah. So very, very low chance of hardware, I would say. So we're definitely going to see, the first inklings of iOS 9. We're going to see the next version of OS 10 and whatever it ends up being called.
Right.
But beyond that, I just don't know what they're going to introduce on Monday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of things we could talk about. I'd like to see, and there's rumors that native watch development, so like apps that'll run off the watch, not just WatchKit, which is what we've already seen, where you have, for example, today, Sunrise, Microsoft owns Sunrise, the calendar just launched the Apple Watch version of that. And so it's like bundled with the iOS app. But I think hopefully we'll see these native apps come along with the new software kit for that. And then, iOS 9, like you said, OS X 10.11, whatever that's going to be, which apparently, 9 to 5 Mac, 9 to Fox has said many times, like these are just going to be sort of like performance improvements and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's going to be as drastic as we've seen in the past, but I forget what the feature's called, but I am looking forward to iOS 9 with the new swipe right to bring up a big search menu and on all kinds of stuff like that, which actually was in iOS before. Now you pull down from the top, but also to provide relevant information, almost like Google Now, where you can have your flight information, stuff like that. Those are what I'm looking for. iPad Pro, I don't know. I don't want to say it's like completely ruled out. Like I agree that, Apple probably won't introduce it, but if they're talking about iOS 9 and sort of the multi-screen support that we're kind of expecting in it, then maybe they have a chance to show it. But also multi-screen could just come later, in September at the iPhone event where they actually talk about all the new features that are coming.
Well, don't forget, now there tends to be the September event for iPhones and the October event for iPads.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. This is one of the bigger mystery WWDCs, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
We just simply don't have a clue as to what's happening.
Yeah. I was really looking forward to the Apple TV refresh, so it was kind of disappointing to see that news today, because I think there was a lot to talk about there. First, HomeKit, because those devices are coming out now. This is supposed to be the central hub for it all. So controlling everything from this box that also serves as, your streaming TV, that also serves as everything in the center of your home. So I thought, especially with all the developers in the room and they want to create their own app store for the Apple TV, this would be the right place to do it. So that just seems weird to me.
Well, speaking of WWDC, Sachin Bahal asks, do you believe that Apple TV service won't be announced at WWDC and be announced later this year for a 2016 release? Honestly, at this point, I'm not sure if that's ever going to materialize.
The service, do you think? I think it's got to come. I think it's going to be sooner, this year. That's just me, though. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it's another case when you're dealing with Hollywood studios, they are going to hold on to money like nobody's business.
Right.
And the way Apple does business compared to the way Hollywood does business, that's going to be a hard chasm to cross.
Yeah, which is just like what we saw with music, actually. We haven't talked about that, but Apple's relaunch of the Beats app, the streaming application. But apparently that's sort of why they bought Beats with Jimmy Iovine to try to get into that industry, the music industry. And so now they're sort of facing, I guess, the same headwinds in cable. Yeah, and they can't just buy, somebody to get in there.
Yeah, well, there really is no magical person when it comes to that sort of stuff, unfortunately. But
yeah. I mean, it seems like if they could buy the streaming TV service at CES, you have it.
Sling
TV, but I know it's already owned by Dish, right? So
yeah, it's owned by Dish, so they would have to purchase Dish, which, according to rumors, may be joining forces with T-Mobile.
Right.
So I would say that is off the table, depending on the way that rumor rolls. But interesting nonetheless. Well, we have a bunch of questions rolling in here from Sachin Bahal. What do you think will be announced, shown at WWDC 2015, and what won't we see at WWDC? Well, we've kind of already answered that, but I think just expanding, I think it's going to be fairly quiet. I think there's going to be a lot of, iOS 9, Mac OS 10, but beyond that, at this point, I think I take that back. There's definitely going to be some talk about HomeKit.
Yeah.
With the first devices hitting shelves now, there's no way they won't discuss HomeKit.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, originally there were supposed to be rumors of this home app, this central app, which, we desperately need, because like I've said in earlier podcasts, I have my drop cam, I have the Nest, which, I mean, obviously those two are together and I know they're combined now, but I also have a D-Link, smart outlet. And I had this folder called Smart Home, and I go in it and I have to open up each app. But I think with HomeKit and again, I'd have to replace all these things to sort of get started. But if there's just one central app, that's a great thing to have, because then you can just sort of get in there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Recent rumors now suggest there won't be. So that's one of the things I'll be looking for, though.
From Christopher Miles, the early the early results of Doze for Android M seem mighty impressive. Do you think Google will finally catch up to Apple in terms of standby time? From what I'm seeing about Doze, it certainly seems like it.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I know the guys in the office have Android M. I haven't installed it myself personally, but I think Android does need that, because when you look at Galaxy S6, for example, a great phone, but obviously they put sort of the battery life on the back burner, and then put the highlights on the quick charging and the wireless charging, and sort of you're going to charge all the time. But that's one of the reasons why I prefer Android phablets, because they have larger batteries, and I know I can definitely get through the day. And I actually struggle with the S6 with that. So yeah, I think Doze is great. I'm looking forward to it catching up.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. Let's see here. We've got some other questions rolling in from Dan Lagos. Do you think we will see improvements to Siri? I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's one of those things where, we were talking yesterday, SoundHound released their new app, Hound Beta, which is crazy. I don't know if you saw it on the site, but there's a video of it. And you can really say, like, sorry, I have somebody vacuuming in the hallway. You can really say, like, what time will the sun set in 2021, 2 days before Christmas? And it answered in like a half second. And then it can also search for, they showed, hotels that cost $99 with 4 stars or more near me. So all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And yet Siri is far more limited. And Google now is getting there. I mean, a lot of the things they showed now on tap is really cool, where you can search right inside a web page. And then Cortana seems more advanced than the two of them, I think, in a lot of ways, depending on what you're doing. And so I feel like Siri desperately needs an update, but I don't know.
Yeah, Siri most definitely needs an update. But speaking of Hound, we have a question from Christopher Miles. Do you think SoundHound's Hound digital assistant will be bought by one of the giants? And if so, who? My money's on Apple, as Siri has the most catching up to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd like to see it happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, I think SoundHound with Hound is more positioned for an acquisition than some, enough people adopting it, because it's not baked in.
Right.
But of course, there's always the chance Microsoft could buy it for Cortana, although Cortana seems to be doing okay on her own. Google is pretty good. I think Apple is the most likely candidate for buying it.
Yeah. One of the things I like about Cortana and Google now in some instances, but that I can't do with Siri, is one of those things where I'm like, remind me to get this at the grocery store. And it sounds so stupid because it's in everybody's like presentation, right? And you're like, but Cortana does a really good job of that, where you can really say it and she does remind you when you're near a grocery store. And so, for example, I was getting groceries the other day and I tried to do it through my Apple Watch. Remind me to get pickles is what I said specifically. And like, I couldn't even set the time for the reminder. I was just like, ugh. So I got to just open up reminders when I get there and see what was there.
Oh, good grief. From Sachin Bahal.
Future problems,
Yeah, exactly. From Sachin Bahal. Hey, Sean, have you had any issues with your Nexus 7 2013 running Android 5.1? I would not know, because I actually sold my Nexus 7 off dirt cheap to a friend who'd never owned a tablet. So I will have to, I don't know if she's even updated it. I'll have to ask her. But no, I don't know of anything about that anymore.
But we know, I guess John did, because yesterday he published a video at the Nexus 9. He was
Yeah, I don't know if I've updated my Nexus 9 yet or not. I can't remember.
I did not yet.
From Christopher Miles, do you think Apple's rumored strong arming of labels to remove free options on other services to remove free streaming options will garner a lot of ill will among consumers, even if Apple Music is cross-platform? Yes.
Yeah, I think so. But you also have to wonder how many consumers are actually going to know that, right? Like, so if Spotify ditches that option, and I don't think it's going to happen, but if they did, how many actual end consumers are going to know it's Apple's fault? Even if Spotify tells them in a blog post or something, and even if we write about it, it's not going to filter down to everybody, I don't think. But it is a bummer. I don't think that should happen. I think that's a great feature. I think it's sort of one of the reasons, probably piracy is down, because you're giving people the option to free, and if you don't want the ads, then you pay, $9.99, or if you're lucky, Google Play Music $7.99 and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. I mean, I'm at that point in my life where I'm trying to cut back on how much I spend every month, and the idea of dropping $10 a month every month for music. I mean, yeah, I still subscribe to Pandora because it's the cheapest, but even at that, I'm like, do I really want to renew next year?
Huh. Yeah. For me, I listen to music all day long, and so Spotify I pay for, and I actually have Google Play Music too, but I use Spotify most.
Yeah, I don't know. But at the same time, and this is what I always find so silly, so many of them won't let you stream to a mobile device if you're on the ad-supported version. Why? What does it matter what device I'm streaming it off as long as the ads are playing?
Yeah, that's weird.
That makes no sense to me, because like when I'm out in Irvine, I hate listening to terrestrial radio, so I'll plug my phone in and to the car system and listen to Pandora as I drive around Irvine.
Right.
But I have to pay if I want to do that, and that just makes no sense to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll be interested to see the pricing and what it offers compared to Spotify. And again, Spotify, we talked about this last week, I believe, was adding new features like video content and stuff like that. Obviously, in an effort to bolster its services ahead of that. So.
Question here from Sachin Bahal. Hey, Sean, how's life as a cord cutter? And what do you guys think of Hulu dropping Hulu Plus later this year? I have not heard about that.
Actually, hadn't seen that either.
That I will have to get back to you on. As for being a cord cutter, for those that don't know, I live with family, and last night marked 1 week since they had gone back from a business trip. I cut the cord while they were gone. They knew I was going to do it.
Surprise!
Yeah, but last night marked 1 week since I did it, and so I asked them both, how are you guys feeling about this? They're absolutely fine with it. They find
the switching the different boxes and stuff. I know we talked.
Well,
about
right now I'm just primarily keeping them to the Roku. But they're finding so much to watch that they're not missing the other stuff at all. I mean, last night I got home and they were watching the Tubi app, TUBI, which I was like, I remember loading that on the Roku. I don't think I've ever used it.
I don't think I even know what that is.
And they were like, "Oh, there's so much great stuff on here. We're watching this show from England called Kingdom with Stephen Fry." I'm like, "I've never even heard of that show." Okay. And so far so good. I mean, and saving us a ton of money each month. So I'm all for it.
Nice. Have you tried the Nvidia box yet, by the way? I know you're going to do our review on it.
I set it up, and I have done the initial setup and all that, but Nvidia emailed me the other day and asked me to hold off on getting too deep into forming opinions because they were going to be sending out a new OTA update. So I'm holding off, but I have set it up. Speaking from the physical design, I'll say I love the physical design of the box. I think it's very attractive. I haven't done much with the game controller yet, but the extra remote that you can purchase is pretty nice, although it's kind of like an extended Apple TV remote.
Right.
Although I really like this. It is rechargeable via micro USB.
Oh, that's nice. So it's not like one of those small cell batteries.
Nope.
I mean,
nope. Just plug a micro USB cable into it like once a week or so and let it charge up.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I like that idea a lot.
I know the Nexus player, nobody really liked it. I know you didn't really like it. It seemed underpowered, I guess, was probably the main issue. And so now I was super excited about this NVIDIA box. The only thing is the model I'd want is probably the 500 gig model.
Mm-hmm.
$399 without any of the accessories is kind of a little steep for me.
Yeah.
Or it's $299. I'm sorry, right? Because $199 for the
$290. Yeah, $299. Yeah.
$299. That's a little steep for me. I would probably pay $199 for that model. I mean, come on, storage is cheap. Everybody knows it. Let's not.
Yeah, well, the next, I think a lot of that has to do with the gaming, and that's the next area that I've got to start for my review is trying to see how it plays on games. Using Nvidia Grid and Steam and all that.
Well, it should be pretty good. I mean, it should be even better, I guess, than the Shield tablet because it's got the more powerful processor, right?
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, so far I like it though. Yeah. From Ariel, I'm going to try to pronounce your name, Palatnik. What do you think about Android Auto, and do you want it in your car?
Yeah, the two of us with our old cars.
Yeah, I know. I drive a 99 Tahoe. So there's not much that I'm going to be able to do with smart cars.
I totally want to do it. Now I'd have to get the aftermarket Pioneer system, I think, which again is expensive. All these sort of boundaries. If I had a car that supported, I know Hyundai was the first to sort of push it out. I think, I guess it was like last week. I would totally want it in my car. And a lot of the new car companies, I guess, are giving you a choice. I was with Volvo in California last week. Their new XC90 has a space on their entertainment system where you can use either one. So,
yeah, well, whenever I'm out in Irvine, I always rent a car. And for some odd reason, I think all but like 2 of the trips I've ended up in a Hyundai. Huh. So I'm just waiting for a newer Hyundai to be in the rental pool.
I wonder if that has to do with, doesn't Hyundai have a headquarters right there in Irvine?
They might be. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but yeah, I end up in a lot of Hyundais. But
so there you go. Next time, maybe. But what happens? Here's just off topic question. What happens when rental cars? They love to charge you like the extra $10 a day for GPS and stuff like that. Like when Android Auto is default, what are you gonna do?
Well, here's the thing. I can't believe that anyone
still does
every time. Yeah, every time I rent a car, they try to upsell me on the GPS.
Yeah.
I have a standalone GPS unit. Mm-hmm. I just bring it with me.
Yeah, you could do that, or I just use maps, like Google Maps.
But the last 2 trips, I've left it at home and just used, I carry so many phones on me. I'm just like, I have Google Maps. Why am I bringing the GPS with me? And so I started using my phones. I'm like, why is anyone renting a GPS from you people?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
No sense.
And I've seen people, like when you go to the little booth, you've been to the John Wayne Airport, where the little booths are downstairs. So I'll be down there waiting for, them to bring me my keys. And I'll see a worker walk by with a clipboard, getting the GPS out and writing. I'm like, who are you people?
I guess international tourists that don't have a smartphone in the country or something like that makes sense.
Okay, now that's possible because like my GPS, whenever it's a Garmin model, so whenever we update it, they try to sell you, do you want to buy maps for other countries? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, if you're coming over from another country, that would make sense to me because then you may not have data service on your phone. You wouldn't have the correct maps in your GPS, quite possibly. Those folks I can fully understand. Mm-hmm. And I certainly would not want to drive around Irvine for the first time without knowing where in the world I was going.
Yeah.
But I just want to be able to tell, keep me off the 405.
Yeah.
Because I hate the 405. But yeah, that would make sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to see. From Nav 9900, Google released an unlimited storage plan for photos. Would you like to see if they could do an unlimited storage for Google Drive, but maybe with a maximum file size? That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. They should do that.
Yeah.
And I love Google Photos, by the way. I've been using it for a long time. I also used Apple's Photos. I don't know. I'm weird. It's like back in the day, you'd have like multiple backups of your computer. And now I do multiple backups of my photos at the cost of a couple bucks a month now for photos. And previously I had bought into Google Drive, but 12 megapixels is pretty good. So all my phones, that's what I usually shoot with are pretty much right there. So I just use that now up to 1080p video, perfect for me. And photos it's amazing. It's kind of creepy how good it is. click a person's face and you get all the pictures of that person. Or I searched Hound the other day and it brought up pictures of my dog just to see if it could, I searched Dachshund too. It found her. It's wild what it can do. And then it creates nice little, montages. If you take a bunch of photos in a row, it creates a little animated GIF or, GIF if you want to be technically correct. Little video montages, automatically creates galleries based on where you were. Story view. I don't know. It's my favorite by far. And I love that it's free now.
Well, we've got a ton of questions coming in, and we are running out of time, so we're going to rapid fire a couple of these. From Ariel Palatnik, what is the best smartwatch right now? Whichever one you want to pick up.
Yeah, whichever one you're wearing.
I'm
still on the Apple Watch. I haven't.
Yes. Which the reason I asked that question before the next one is we have a question from Dan Ligas. How is the Apple Watch, Todd? Are you still loving it?
I am still loving it. I talked to Sean last night, and I see one of the questions here is, has your purple time arrived yet? Mine is set for delivery for tomorrow, so I'm excited to try that. But they just told us yesterday the iPhone app isn't out yet, so I've been using this with my iPhone. Of course, I'm also carrying an Android phone right now too, so I'll be able to use the Pebble Time. But Apple Watch, I'm really liking it a lot. Continued use. I wrote an article over the weekend though. One of the biggest problems is the apps. I think there's a huge quality control issue. I actually talked to a developer because I said, look, the apps are there, but when you open most of them from smaller developers, it just sits on loading, right? Like it barely loads the app by the time the screen turns off, and that's terrible. And I spent $1 on an app recently only for tides, for high and low tides for when I fish on the weekends. And it doesn't work. So I emailed the developer, and I'm not going to name it, but he wrote back and said, well, I don't own an Apple Watch, so I was just using the tools they made me to build it. Mine hasn't arrived yet. And I was like, well, I didn't even respond because that's kind of ripping off your audience, right? Like, why are you building an Apple Watch app if you don't know how it's going to work? And he's like, well, I have this emulator and stuff. And that's a huge quality control issue. But then you have, Foursquare did a really good job. It loads really quickly. We wrote up Fantastical 2 recently. That's a really great app, and it loads quickly. And it's made by a small team. It's just one guy or two guys. So those are sort of the exceptions to the rule. But then you have these other apps where they're just being added in. And as I found out, the developers don't even own Apple Watches yet, which is really frustrating.
As someone that's worked on quality control for websites and all that, I can tell you emulators are never accurate.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. So I was like, what? Are you kidding me? So I just spent $1 for an app that I assume, you put in some trust here that I assume you built and it works. It had a pretty decent rating because the iPhone, and that's probably one of the other problems here too, is the ratings sort of reflect the iPhone app, not necessarily the Apple Watch app. So you see a 4 or 5 star app, you buy it, and then the Apple Watch app doesn't reflect that at all. It's junk, and there's my long-winded answer.
No, I agree with you though. That's not good. Yeah. From Christopher Miles, thoughts on Google Now on Tap?
So cool. It looks awesome. I love that, you can be inside of a page and sort of bring it up. And for me, it reminds me of what you can do in Google Play Movies and stuff where you sort of pause the movie or whatever, and you can get information on the actor or actress. It sort of like taps into web pages and brings you more information on that, on the web page and stuff like that. So except it's like system wide. So sorry, it's not just in the web page. So super excited to try that.
From Ariel Palatnik, do you use Android TV? I am in the process currently of reviewing the Nvidia Shield, which runs on Android TV. Mm-hmm. I will say I have some issues with it. Number one being that there's no way to create a favorites of your apps list. They're just all in a big long line, and whatever you've used most recently is at the front. Well, what if I only use a certain app once a month? I have to dig for it, and it's not in any sort of order.
Right.
So that's my biggest issue with it. Otherwise, it's fine. It's an OS. I think it could use some flourishes, though.
I was surprised actually that we didn't hear more on that at Google I/O.
Yeah,
sort of like here's what we're doing to change it up, make it a little better.
Well,
I've never used it aside from in demos with Google where it worked fabulously. Obviously.
To close out this week's episode from Such a Bahal, since Sean the Man 34 isn't here this week, I'll ask this on his behalf. Have you returned anything this week, Todd?
I haven't yet, but I did get the Apple Watch strap that I had ordered that I said I was going to return, so I got to return that. So that's my 2-week return. I don't know. Pebble time comes tomorrow. I could quickly get rid of that. I'm just kidding. I'm going to play with that. I'm actually really excited.
Yeah, mine hasn't shipped yet. I'm not sure what's going on.
The thing is, though, I got to say that as I've grown used to the Apple Watch, I really do like the hardware, just like I like the Moto 360 hardware. I think the design's really nice. And the Pebble, I'm not so crazy about. I kind of wish I'd gotten the Steel version.
Yeah, well, it's even more annoying is you ordered your Pebble after I did.
Yeah, and yours is coming.
I haven't got a shipment notice yet.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah,
because I know I was in the second batch.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where my Pebble is. I would like my Pebble.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that is going to wrap up the 50th episode of the TechnoBuffalo Show, which we do appreciate you joining us. As always, you can find the TechnoBuffalo Show on the iTunes store by searching for the TechnoBuffalo Show. And we do appreciate if you rate and review us. That does help out the show. You can also find us on Pocket Cast. You can subscribe via RSS feed, or you can find us on the Stitcher app, which means you can listen to us anytime, anywhere. Basically, anywhere you find podcasts, you can find the TechnoBuffalo Show. Until next week, I'm Sean Ani. I'm the editor-in-chief of TechnoBuffalo. I've been joined by Deputy Managing Editor Todd Hazelton.
Bye, everybody.
Till next week, take it easy, everyone. Bye-bye.